All right, so ready to jump in and learn a little about Kareem Ederbush.
Let's do it.
This will be a fun deep dive. We're talking about a guy who builds business apps,
Yeah,
and his career path is, well, it's pretty inspiring,
definitely.
especially if you're into tech and kind of see where, a passion for this stuff can take you. And we've got a ton to work with here. CV, website, LinkedIn, even some glimpses into his tech blog and what he's putting out on X, formerly Twitter.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, so we're basically tracing the steps,
Yeah.
right? Seeing what led him to where he is now. And I think no matter how much you know about tech, there are going to be some surprises along the way.
What always strikes me is how these stories are never a straight line. It's not always A to B. It's more about how someone takes those early passions and lets them, well, evolve, I guess, over time.
Totally. And you can see that passion for tech early on. Just looking at his CV,
Yeah.
graduated from École Centrale des Nantes. That's a top engineering school, right?
Oh, yeah. One of the best.
So, he's got some serious skills.
Hmm.
But then he lands an internship at Amadeus.
Wow. Amadeus, big company.
Huge, global giant in
Yeah.
travel tech. And not just any internship. This is in their R&D department. I mean, that already tells you something, right? This is someone who wants to be right there, pushing the limits of what's possible.
For sure. And I think those early experiences are so crucial. Amadeus is known for really pushing boundaries in the travel industry. So it's not just about, learning the basics. He was thrown into an environment that thrives on innovation.
Yeah, he wasn't just grabbing coffee and making copies, that's for sure. This is where he develops Mobile Lock, even the name, right? It screams future, doesn't it?
Huh? Yeah, a bit, I guess.
Back in 2013, he was already building a two-factor authentication solution that uses push notifications. I mean, think about it. This was way before everyone and their grandma was getting pinged with security codes on their phones.
It's true. It seems obvious now, but back then it was cutting edge.
Definitely. Anything in there about the challenges he faced bringing that project to life?
Not specifically, at least not in these materials. But just thinking about where push technology was back then, he must have had to work with tools that were still, in their early stages. Even thinking to use push notifications for security at that time was pretty ahead of the curve.
It just goes to show you that a really strong understanding of data can be applied in so many different areas.
Yeah.
And it becomes even clearer when we get to his time at Société Générale. He dives into finance, but it's like those data analysis skills, they're his superpower. Now he's working with data sets of, get this, over 250,000 lines of data per month.
Wow.
Yeah, that's intense. Anything in the materials about how he handled that kind of volume?
It's interesting. He seems to embrace those massive data sets. Like he starts as a data engineer, which, let's be honest, that can mean a lot of things on a resume.
True, very true.
But you look closer and he's not just crunching numbers in a cubicle somewhere. He was building the tools that powered their financial systems. Stuff like regulatory reporting, liquidity management, risk analysis.
Yeah, high-level stuff.
This wasn't just some abstract data project. This had real-world impact on how the bank functioned.
So clearly not someone who's intimidated by responsibility, especially at a major financial institution like that where the stakes are so high. Do you think that work at Amadeus, even though it was a totally different industry, do you think that helped prepare him for that kind of environment?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. You're talking about systems that are, well, mission critical, right? Where even a small mistake can have huge consequences.
Right, right.
So yeah, that time at Amadeus, it probably gave him some really valuable experience in how to handle problems in that kind of high-pressure environment.
It's like they say, pressure cooks diamonds.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And you can definitely see those problem-solving skills shining through in what he accomplished at Société Générale. Like, he automated the production of these analysis files.
Which was a huge deal.
Yeah, it was a huge bottleneck before, and he made the entire process 60% faster.
Wow.
And that's not just about, like, writing code efficiently. It's about understanding the whole workflow and seeing where the pain points are.
Exactly. And that's where his ability to bridge that gap between data and business decisions really comes in. He's not just thinking about, what the data says, but what it means for the people who are using it.
And speaking of understanding people, this is where things get really interesting because he doesn't just stay in that technical role. He actually becomes a product and team manager.
Oh, wow. So he's leading a team now.
He is leading a team of 7 people, which that's a pretty big step up in terms of responsibility.
For sure. It is. And it just highlights this other really important aspect of success in tech, right? Like, it's not enough to just be good with code. You have to be able to communicate that, to inspire other people, to lead them.
Totally.
Right?
And this wasn't just like managing a team. This was managing projects with millions of euros on the line. His LinkedIn profile even mentions that he designed a whole web application for, get this, optimizing risk-weighted assets.
Okay, so we're not talking about some little side project here.
Not at all. This is serious stuff. We're talking about the core of how a bank manages its risk.
Exactly.
It seems like he's always looking for those big, high-impact challenges.
Yeah.
And you really start to see that entrepreneurial spirit coming out even more when he moves from Société Générale to the startup world.
Yeah, it's like all these experiences were building up to this. Remember Mobile Lock? It's like he got a taste of building something new, and now he's diving right into the startup world where it's all about innovation.
And this time he's not just building a product, he's building a whole platform.
Which, to be fair, can sound a little intimidating.
It kind of does. Even for someone like me who, talks about tech all the time, his website mentions that he's working on a B2B PaaS platform. I'm assuming that's platform as a service. But for those of us who don't speak fluent acronym, what does they actually mean?
Sure. So imagine you're a business, right? And you need some kind of custom software. You could build it from scratch, which would take forever and cost a fortune.
Yeah.
Or you could use a PaaS platform. That's what Kareem's working on.
Okay, I'm listening.
He's essentially providing all the building blocks, the infrastructure, the tools, so other businesses can create their own applications without having to start from zero.
So instead of having to make every single brick, he's giving them the Lego set and they can just build whatever they want.
Exactly. Great analogy. And it takes a very particular skill set to be successful with that kind of work. You need a deep understanding, not just of the tech, but of the business problems these platforms are designed to solve. You also need to be able to lead a team, inspire them to build something truly innovative.
It sounds like his career path, all those different experiences from Amadeus to Société Générale, have given him this really unique set of skills.
Absolutely. Technical expertise, business sense, leadership skills. It's like he's been preparing for this his whole career.
Makes you wonder if he had this all planned out.
Yeah.
Or if it was more about just following his curiosity. And speaking of curiosity, one thing that really jumped out at me was how dedicated he is to constantly learning new things. I mean, an executive program at HEC Paris.
Wow.
That's not something you do just to add a line to your resume. That takes serious dedication.
It really does. It shows a real desire to grow, to expand his knowledge, which is so essential in tech. And it's not just formal education either. His blog, his activity on X, it all points to someone who genuinely enjoys getting into the nitty-gritty of tech.
Yeah, he even built his own Kindle viewer. The guy clearly loves to build things. But let's go back to that blog for a second, specifically his posts on push technologies and the MEVN stack.
Okay.
Now, I know you mentioned earlier that we've got a pretty tech-savvy audience. What are some of the things in those posts that they would pick up on, things that maybe the average person wouldn't necessarily catch?
Okay, so his post on push technologies, especially considering it was written back in check date of blog post.
Right.
That shows a really impressive grasp of the tech landscape at the time.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how relevant a lot of that stuff still is.
Exactly. And he doesn't shy away from the complex stuff either. He talks about the challenges of making sure things work seamlessly across all these different devices and operating systems, a challenge that's still a major headache for developers today.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Even more so now, probably.
And that kind of leads into his post on the MEVN stack, which is a really popular choice for building web apps these days. But again, he doesn't just give you the surface level, He breaks down each component, MongoDB, Express.js, Vue.js, Node.js, and importantly, he explains why he chose that specific stack.
It's like he's giving you a peek into his thought process, which is super valuable for anyone trying to figure out web development.
Right. It's not just, this is what I use, it's this is why I use it, and this is how you can think about making these decisions yourself.
Yeah, exactly. He's not just giving you the fish, he's teaching you how to fish.
And that's a perfect way to put it, whether it's Mobile Lock or his work at Société Générale or even just those deep dives he does on his blog. There's this thread of seeing a need, finding that, that really elegant solution, and then, this is the important part, sharing it with others.
That's he can't not share what he's learned. This drive to build, to innovate, but also to teach, to bring other people along. Which I think brings us to you, right, our listener.
Yeah.
Because whether you're, a coding whiz, hoping to launch your own startup, or just someone who's fascinated by, the whole tech world, there's a lot to take away from Kareem's story. What are some of the things that really stand out to you?
Honestly, that whole thing about never stop learning,
Right.
It's huge. Kareem's willingness to jump into new technologies, even after all this time, it's a good reminder that this industry never sits still, does it? If you
Right.
stop learning, you get left behind.
Totally. And it's not even just about like chasing the latest trends. It's about that that mindset, right? That curiosity, that drive to figure things out.
Exactly.
And I think Kareem's story really shows how powerful that can be. That solid understanding of data analysis, the passion for building solutions, that dedication to always learning something new. I mean, that can open up some incredible doors.
No doubt.
So next time you're, hitting a wall, whether it's at work or just in your own life, think about Kareem's story. What would a tech-driven solution look like? How can you bring a little bit of that same curiosity to the table? Something to think about, for sure.